So thank you all for being here, letting me speak to you on such a beautiful day here in Austin. I know that those of you who live here probably consider every day to be a beautiful day in Austin. But today is a particularly nice day because later on today, the only man that could manage to make Jimmy Carter look competent and his big government entourage are going to board a very large plane and leave Texas. That's what I call a good day. Unfortunately, we can be certain that they will be back. The president and his party have set their sights on the Lone Star State. They want to implement their radical left-wing agenda here by electing Democrats from the courthouse to the state house, all the way to the governor's house. Because they know that Texas stands as a shining example of how conservative leadership works. They are desperate to get rid of the Texas model. Texas is the inconvenient truth that confronts their failed ideology on all fronts. The contrast could not be clearer. In less than 2 years under President Obama's leadership, the Democrats have printed and spent over $800 billion of money they did not have on a complete failure of a stimulus bill. That stimulus bill was more bloated with bad ideas than the president's new best pals on the feud. They want to let the Bush tax cuts expire so they can raise taxes on everybody who pays taxes. Pelosi and the House Democrats passed a cap-and-trade bill that will basically tax every light switch in America. They refused to pass a budget so they can keep on spending and heap trillions more in debt on the backs of our children and grandchildren. And the result, an unemployment rate that hovers near 10%, trillion-dollar deficits, and an ocean of red ink as far as the eye can see. Contrast that with the record here in Texas. Meanwhile, down here in Texas, we don't have an income tax. Under Republican leadership, we deal with our budget by using responsible, fiscally conservative methods like lowering taxes, cutting spending, easing the regulatory burden to encourage businesses to come here and encourage entrepreneurship. And the result, our economy is the envy of the nation. Texas continues to create more jobs than any other state in the union. Our unemployment rate remains well below the national average. And since the year 2000, Texas has experienced a net influx of over 500,000 people who have moved here to take advantage of the economic opportunity here. Those people could have gone to anywhere in the country, but they saw the way we do things here in Texas and they said, "I'll take Texas." Businesses and industries have left states and continue to leave states that adopt the D.C. Democrat model because they see our educated and skilled workforce, our low tax burden, and they've said, "I'll take Texas." Hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors, nurses, specialists, and medical professionals of all kinds have seen our tort reform here in Texas that will allow them to practice their profession without being frivolously litigated out of business. They've said, "I'll take Texas." All over the nation, people are comparing the D.C. Democrat model of more government, more taxes, more spending, to the Texas model of less government, less taxes, less spending, more individual responsibility, and time again they're saying, "I'll take Texas." And that is why, no matter how much money the president raises and spends here, the Democrats will not take Texas. Because in a battle for the hearts and minds of Texas voters, Democrats are bringing a knife to a gunfight. And when the smoke clears in November, we'll still be standing tall and they'll be in the same place they are today, taking a long ride home, having learned the hard way to keep their hands off Texas. Now to some, our confidence in keeping Democrat hands off of Texas might seem like overconfidence or overzealous or boasting. But let me assure you, my confidence is not in me, it's not in myself, it's not in my party. It's in you. It's in the people of Texas, the hardworking taxpayers of Texas. Because here in Texas, as it's happened all across the country, at protests like this, at tea parties, at town halls, we, the people, have risen up to confront this overbearing government's vision of an America we no longer recognize. Texans will not accept this radical departure from our nation's founding principles, nor will we allow Democrats to implement it here in Texas. From those first tea parties, over a year ago, right up until today, this president and his sycophants in Congress and the press could not conceal their contempt and disdain for ordinary average Americans who dared rise up and speak against their radical agenda. They saw the uprising. They heard the voice of the people, but did they listen? No, they struck back with renewed zeal to tighten their grip on the auto industry, the financial industry, the healthcare industry. We ask for lower taxes. They respond with more taxes. We ask for less spending. They respond with more spending. We ask for lower deficits. They respond with more deficits. We ask for less regulation. They respond with more. You picking up on a trend here? When they passed those bills in plain sight of clear opposition from coast to coast and shoved those bills down our throats, they did this because they thought we would give up, shut up, and go away. Never in history have so few been so wrong about so many. We're not going away. We're still here. Our numbers are growing. Our volume is rising. If they choose to continue turning a deaf ear to our united voice, then they'll have no choice but to hear us loudly and clearly come November. If they choose to keep taxing and spending this economy into oblivion, thereby slamming shut the door of opportunity in the faces of our children and grandchildren, then come November, we're kicking that door down. Not since the founding of this country has there existed so wide a gulf between the governing and the governed. And the gulf that separates us is a tempestuous sea of mistrust. Those in authority who seek to expand the government's control over our economy, over every aspect of our way of life, they do so because they do not trust the American people's capacity for self-reliance. They do not trust you to endure this current hardship to ensure future prosperity. They do not trust you to help your neighbor in need. They do not trust you to manage your health care, your finances, your retirement. In short, they do not trust you with your own destiny. And any man, a man who does not trust the greatness of the American people, can never be trusted to govern the American people. The clock is ticking. November is fast approaching. The president and his party hope that this November marks the beginning of a Texas House and a Texas controlled by the Democratic Party. They dream of a day when Texas Republicans and Republicans all across the nation are relegated to a permanent minority status. Their dream leads to a day when citizens no longer work to provide for their families, but work to provide revenue to the government, to control a nation of dependents through a myriad of social programs. There may come a day when that ill-fated dream comes to fruition, but it is not this day. Today, Texas Republicans make a stand. Today, we resolve to fight for every vote, neighbor to neighbor, precinct by precinct, to the last individual. And when the history of this period is recorded, it will be written that a giant step towards ending America's brief foray into European-style socialist democracy was taken today, when Texas Republicans, with a resolve that could not be shaken, with a record that could not be discredited, and with a voice that could not be silenced, sent an unmistakable message to the D.C. Democrat crowd. Keep your hands off Texas. Thank you for being here. Thank God for Texas, and God bless the United States of America.